England in the year 2079. 300 or more armed civilians have taken refuge in the New Forest. Among them is Rachel Jones, a top researcher, archaeologist, and great Egyptologist. Standing at 5 feet 2 inches tall, she weighs 10 stone and has long black hair. She sports the cutest of cute smiles to go with her light-tanned complexion and hazel eyes. And at the age of just 29, she battles the zombies with 2 swords, delivers a mean punch, and holds a black belt for karate. Fighting alongside her is her 25-year-old look-alike younger sister Amanda, who's an ex-stripper and pole dancer who fights with anything she can get her hands on. She stands at 5 feet 5 inches in her high heels, packs one hell of a jab or two whilst wearing a black suspender belt, and is an expert at karaoke. Together, they'd been taking orders from Michael Banks, who was once a police officer, named and shamed before being kicked out of the force for stealing drug dealers' money to give to the poor. At the age of just 29, he's from a mixed-race origin and stands at 6 feet tall. He weighs 15 stone and prefers to fight with machine guns, and had recently asserted his authority over the rest of the civilians after their rightful ruler was eaten alive, which was probably the reason why they placed him in charge with no questions asked. The resistance had been hunting zombies throughout the nights in the nearby towns and villages before retreating to the national park to hide out throughout the day, and have been doing so for the last 6 months. Around 11:30 p.m. British local time, a team of armed civilians have been getting ready to leave the forest to embark on another night of mutilating and burning zombies.
What are you writing about, big sister? How many times do we have to go through this? I've been working on this book for the last 6 months. I'm a researcher, and it's my job to document things. Not anymore. You're just another sword-swinging mad woman who goes around decapitating savages, chewing gum, and blowing bubbles. That's fair enough. But what if we somehow win this godforsaken war? Our children will one day read this book, and our grandchildren will do likewise. They may even light candles and hold a remembrance service for us on how we helped to eliminate the undead beasts, and our names will live on forever. Okay, sis, whatever you say, just make sure you write something nice about me. Don't worry, Amanda, I already have. Such as?
Nothing much, apart from the fact that you like to wear your black 3-length leather overcoat with just your underwear and your black knee-high boots when we go into battle. And whenever you corner a male zombie and he's got nowhere to run, you open up your coat and give him a quick flash before chopping his head off. And sometimes you're not even wearing a bra. I mean, why do you do that, little sister? It's called payback. Years ago, when I used to strip and do the pole dancing thing, men paid good money to have a glance at my credentials. I'm giving it to them for free now. Yeah, so now you've got them dying to see it.
Rachel laughed, while Amanda pursued, but the laughter was short-lived as a male voice interrupted them.
Okay, girls, it's time to get serious. I've just briefed the rest of the guys. You two are with me tonight. We're driving to a town called Brockenhurst. According to our scouts, we've got between 150 to 160 active dead men that need to be killed and burnt. Roger and Melinda have volunteered to stay behind when we're all done and make sure Brockenhurst remains a zombie-free zone. I want nothing fancy from you two tonight. We just kill the savages and move the hell out of there. Michael explained to the pair of laughing sisters who were probably pretending to be listening to what he was saying. An hour and a half later, they entered Brockenhurst's town centre, running over every single savage that stood in front of their vehicles before parking up and taking the fight to the streets on foot, followed by a house-to-house search. The enemy didn't stand a chance as they got ripped apart from bullets and swords, plus a mad woman flashing her booty with a smile on her face. Once it was all over, the civilians stacked the dismembered bodies, set them alight, and began to celebrate another successful mission. But amid the celebrations, Michael approached Amanda, for he'd been having mixed feelings about an earlier incident he'd witnessed 30 minutes or so ago involving her and a zombie she'd cornered. "Do you mind if I have a quick word with you?" he asked, ushering her away from the rest of the group.
No problem, Mike.
"I thought we agreed on nothing fancy."
Sorry, Mike, but did you see the smile on that savage's face when I opened up my coat?
Michael smiled because he remembered the whole incident and was dying to say, "Never mind the half-eaten face, smiling zombie. How could you have missed mine?" But took a slightly different approach. "Yes, I did. You stopped him in his tracks and both his eyes popped out."
You saw that as well. I thought my brain was playing tricks on me.
"No, it was real all right. The poor guy must have died a little while back, and when you started flashing your bits at him, he figured he was on his way to heaven. I bet he doesn't realize you chopped his head off. His views have probably been suspended in time, and he's most likely staring at your credentials, even as we speak." Moments later, Rachel abandoned the rest of the group to intrude on Mike and the Flashers' conversation, after feeling left out, wondering what they've been laughing at, but is distracted by something else.
Excuse me, young lady, but would you mind putting away your weapons of mass distractions?
She conversed after watching Amanda, parading her credentials for everyone to see. She'd forgotten to do the buttons on her coat back up and was exposing her translucent bra, but she couldn't care less. "Your mum can be so demanding when she's ready."
Mom's a lot worse than me. If she was here, she'd be chasing her down the road, trying her best to hit her in the head with a broomstick or a snooker cue. She's lucky I'm just her elder.
"Is that true?"
Don't listen to her. She's just jealous because my boobs are better looking than hers. Yeah, right. Look at the state of those nipples. They stick out like bullets.
"That's true, but it's handy having them half-inch long. Just think when your husband comes home from a hard day's work, he could hang his coat and umbrella up, making use of them both, walk straight into the front room, make himself comfortable on his chair or sofa and watch his favourite TV show while waiting for his dinner." Michael explained his anatomy, which caused Rachel to laugh, but Amanda the Flasher didn't find it so amusing. But he could sense a slight tension building up between the two sisters and knew it was a probably good time to disappear before things get a little nasty. "I think I'd better check on the rest of the guys before I get myself into trouble,"
Yeah, you do that, you cheeky bastard.
Amanda replied. She never meant to offend her sister with her crazy heroics and was simply living up to her nickname, Amanda the Flasher, or Flash for short. An hour and a half later, the civilians arrived home to their forest hideout. Michael officially congratulated everyone for another successful mission. They'd taken no casualties, which was surely worth celebrating, as the night watch crew climbed the trees and positioned themselves in their various lookout posts to observe, while the rest of the vigilantes took some time out to get some shut-eye. Meanwhile, 2 years of intense negotiations was all Captain John Stevens needed to persuade Agent Johnson to fight alongside him in his bid to take over the globe. In return for his services, he'd been promised many things, including the right to never be infected and become second in charge of the new elite world order under John's rule. The dynamic duo, along with the usual suspects, First Zombie Officer Joe Smith, etc., had arrived in Scotland preparing to inspect a clan of zombies, known as the Royal Scottish Tartan Regiment, who'd gathered in record numbers to meet the cap. Exhausted and half asleep with one eye open and some with one eye missing, they stood to the Cap's attention in a single file, awaiting inspection and orders from their new leader, who acknowledged their impatience as he'd walked among them with an intimidating stare, while Johnson followed behind, trying his best not to laugh at the blood-soaked and stained, almost lifeless savages with limbs and fingers missing. The freak show lasted for around 40 minutes, and the Cap was happy enough with his latest line of recruits apart from one. In fact, he seemed rather bothered and baffled by a certain zombie's appearance, and had to take another look in case his eyes had been playing tricks on him. But after realizing he'd saw what he'd thought he did, he whispered to Johnson, "Send the man wearing the miniskirt home."
That's not a skirt, it's a kilt.
Johnson replied, trying his best not to laugh. He'd been watching the Cap's confused face for the last 10 minutes. "Yeah, right, Johnson, it's half a bloody dress, that's what it is."
You don't understand, this is Scotland, and that tartan thing he's wearing is part of a tradition the soldiers wear whenever they lead into battle, with nothing on underneath.
What, you mean he's not a cross-dresser?
Of course not.
Oh, in that case, I guess it's okay for him to go parading in a skirt.
Later on that evening, the captain was feeling rather curious about Johnson. Not knowing a single thing about him was making him feel uncomfortable. He realized the FBI man hated zombies with a passion, but coming to think of it, he hated normal people too. But as his curiosity got the better of him, he was given no choice but to fire away a few questions.
"Look, Agent Johnson, we've known each other for quite some time now. I see you every day, for Christ's sake, and I don't even know your actual name."
Well, since you requested, I suppose I better tell you Alfred Humbert Jenkins.
"You're kidding me, right?" said John, almost choking himself with laughter.
Did I say something funny?
"No, not at all. I mean, yes. What type of parents could be so cruel to do such a thing? If I was at the registry office when your mother and father turned up deciding to scar you for life, I would have shouted, 'No, you can't do that to him. People will make fun of him. Have you both gone mad? What are you guys drinking? Or is what you've been smoking? He's just a baby, for Christ's sake. Wait until he's old enough to defend himself before you try to write crap like that on his birth certificate, and see if he doesn't beat the living daylights out of you for thinking up such a crazy idea." That's why you joined the FBI?
Why?
Don't deny it, Johnson. You did it so you could require a license for kidnapping and torturing people for speaking their minds, or just smashing them up for not having a crappy name like yours. I bet you told your boss half of the citizens you put in hospital were self-confessed come out of the closet terrorist, but you know what?
Just tell me. Don't beat around the bush.
Having a shitty name like yours would make me want to kill people too. You're full of elephant dung. Johnson was quick to express his gratitude, but the captain wasn't finished with him yet. "I bet when you were younger you thumped the crap out of everyone who called you by your dreadful birth name. I'm sure you even battered the school teachers too, so you could get yourself an after-school detention and strangle them on their way home in private. How did your kin die? Oh, never mind, I won't ever call you what your parents did. In fact, I'll be calling you Mr. Johnson from now on. The last thing I want is for you to attack me with those enormous fists of yours while I sleep."
For once in your life, you're right. I used to get into fights on an average of 5 times a week. As for Mom and Dad, they perished in a house fire.
Johnson replied with a smile on his face, for somebody other than himself finally understood him. and it made no difference if the sympathy came from a complete madman. I'm sorry to hear about your parents. I don't suppose you want to talk about it.
It's no big deal.
Johnson paused before taking a deep breath and continued.
2 guys tried to abduct my sister on her way home from school. But after underestimating her ability to defend herself, she managed to fight them off, but made the mistake of telling me what had happened to her. Naturally, I went looking for them with a few of my acquaintances, but we never found them until a few weeks afterward. In fact, it was a Saturday afternoon when me and my buddies received a tip-off on the whereabouts of these 2 individuals. We should have gone to the police, but instead, we took the matter into our own hands. We kidnapped and tortured the pair of them in this old derelict farmhouse out in the country wastelands for a whole week before letting the scum leave.
Johnson shook his head, reliving the painful memory, and proceeded where he left off.
We were young, stupid, and ruthless, but neither of us were killers, so when we let them go, I thought the war was over between us, until they had their revenge 6 months later.
What did they do? John interrupted, as the story was getting rather interesting.
They approached my parents' home in the middle of the night, pouring petroleum on and around it. It was a wooden house, so you could imagine what happened when they threw ignited petrol bombs through 2 of its 4-bedroom windows. My mom was sleeping in one of the quickly engulfed rooms while my father slept in the other. They hadn't been getting on. Mother had recently confessed to Pups about an affair she'd had years ago, which led to a strong possibility of me being the son of a milkman, but that's another story.
Johnson paused with a vision in his mind of Ernie, the famous gypsy who once drove the fastest milk cart in the West, creeping into his parents' home, just as his dad was sneaking out. With so many overwhelming bad thoughts running through his mind, Johnson found it hard to continue.
It's okay, son, you don't have to do this.
John expressed after seeing the painful look on his face, but whilst resting his hand on the broken agent's shoulder, he spoke unto himself.
Bloody hell, did I just call him my boy?
For he still hated FBI men with a passion.
I want to do this.
Okay, it's your call.
The fire caught us off guard while we all slept. I managed to wake in time as the smoke was filling my room, causing me to run to alert the others. As I entered my little sister's bedroom, I could feel the fumes thickening in the back of my throat, choking me as I tried to wake her in vain. I needed to get her out before we both perished, so I picked her up and ran as fast as I could, through the fire without thinking, down the stairs and straight out, constantly holding my breath, before placing her into the arms of my neighbor from across the street. She was a trained doctor and knew what to do. I helped her lay my little sister down on the lawn, and she immediately started to perform emergency CPR on her. I felt an urge to run back for my parents, but 2 off-duty police officers grabbed me. They were a lot taller and stronger too. I wanted to hit the one that arrested me a few weeks back for stealing the Rastafarian's multicolored rainbow effect motorcycle, but after they'd pinned me to the ground, he said, "I'm sorry, kid." Those chilling words still haunt me today as I watched our home burning with Mom and Dad still in it.
Moments later, Johnson gazed into thin air. With his horrid visions becoming cloudy from the tears forming in his eyes, he'd just told John Stevens his most horrific experience.
What happened to the evil guys?
John asked moments later, after finding the agent's story a bit of a tearjerker.
They went on the run, knowing they wouldn't get far. There was a worldwide hunt and a reward for anyone with information leading to their arrest. So they gave themselves up after 2 days of hiding and taught me a valuable lesson.
What do you mean, Mr. Johnson?
We're going to lose this war, for no matter how bad or invincible we think we are, There's someone or something out there far worse. He's gonna find us, and he'll either break or kill us. Have you gone mad, Johnson? Who the bloody hell can stop us? There is no one. Me and you are on the verge of owning this planet. We are the rightful rulers now. There's no one to even challenge us, let alone destroy us. You'll see.
Later that evening, John and Johnson hit the road again, driving a freight lorry each. They crammed as much zombies as they could into the lorry's containers, but not without difficulty. In fact, they'd pushed, kicked and squeezed in one or two too many, and had to cut a few limbs off to close the doors. But in the end, they managed to get the majority of them in before safely withdrawing their legions from Aberdeen.